Live. We're live. Awesome. Took a little while, but we're finally here. So yeah, welcome to something special on a Saturday, which is the Future of Wrestling podcast. And for today, I'm joined by Jonny Jackpot. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me, Marvin. Good to see you.
So, before we start into the wrestling talk, how long have you been a fan for?
Oh, many
Approximately.
years. Remember watching it back in when I was a teenager, back in 2001. So kind of missed most of the best stuff in like the late 90s, like WCW in the war and everything. But been a fan ever since. But did fall away a little bit in maybe the last 5 years. But then I've come back in just before COVID. Just got back into it, and I'm back to being a mega fan now.
All right. So of course, when I say we're going to talk about the future of wrestling, I do mean that we are going to talk about people who have a long career ahead of them. Like they're going to be in the prime in about 10 years, and in about 20 years, we're probably still going to see them on TV on the regular, and that means we are going to talk about people under the age of 30 for tonight, and just predict who's going to make it and who's not going to make it. And with that being said, if you have a name you want to start off with, by all means.
I've definitely got a name I want to start off with. It's got to be the one and only MJF. The
That was
guy whose
expected.
contract is up in 2024. What's he going to do?
It's of course a lot of speculation with MGF if he is gonna re-sign with AEW. Like he says he's unhappy in AEW, but then again, MGF is great at working people, so there's ever so good a chance that he's doing exactly that. Maybe he is going to WWE. We don't know. One thing I think is fair to say is that a guy who's able to work a crowd like he does definitely has a long-standing career ahead of him.
Definitely, 100%.
Especially if we look at the work style as well. Like some people would call it lazy. Not me. It's just a very safe work style, but that's fine. It has worked well for The Miz. It has worked well for Randy Orton. It has worked well for Cena. Look how long their careers have been going. MJF wants the same. He doesn't want to have a short career with lots of highlights. He wants to have a long career that people are going to remember for good storytelling.
It's true. And not everybody has to be, doing all the flips and a million and one dives. I like his in-ring style. I think his character is what brings people to the table, his presence. More so, again, he can go in the ring, but he's not killing himself every night. He just wants to make money, doesn't he?
Absolutely. And, there are not a lot of heels who can heal it up like he does, so that's always going to be a big plus in his book, and definitely going to help him, get good deals. Like he might get a good deal out of AEW or WWE when he is due for a new contract.
Well, according to the dirt sheets, he's not very happy at the moment because other people are getting paid more than him than what he obviously signed up to initially, and he's a bigger household name now. So I think, he's got every right to ask for more money, which TK is willing to offer, apparently, but not for the same length of term. He wants an extension. So we're just going to have to see what happens there.
Absolutely. I think it is safe to say that whether it is going to be AEW or WWE or New Japan or whatever, we're going to see MJF for a long time. I think it's safe to say that.
Definitely. And I'm going to say now, this year, he will be heavyweight champion in AEW. He will be the next. Possibly if CM Punk wins and then he wins it off CM Punk, but it's happening this year. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I'm going out on a limb.
You're very positive about it. I would have to agree. Obviously, MJF very good shout out as the first person to talk about. He is, of course, under 30. And a lot of people are very high of him. A lot of people really respect what he's able to do. Someone who's a little bit more controversial, but also under 30, is the name that I want to bring up next, and that is the Colossus known as Omos.
Ooh,
Now, what do you make of
MVP's
Omos?
friend. Yeah. So you're asking me what I think of Omos?
Yeah, what do you make of Omos?
You know what? I'm not a fan of his in-ring performances at the moment. Of course, he's been described as a little bit green in terms of his in-ring work, but I do
To be fair,
quite think
he is green. He is very green.
he is very green. Okay, we can agree on that then. Greener than my tree over here, but in fairness to him, he's a tall guy. Vince loves tall, muscly, big men slapping man meat kind of stuff. But he does have a presence about him. He's a tall guy. He steps in the ring. You know, he's 7 foot, I think, or maybe higher than that. And I think
a little bit higher.
7'5", did you say?
A little bit higher, like 7'2", maybe. Not entirely sure. Just something that stuck by me.
Yeah, I do think he's got a bright future, but I think his in-ring work is only going to take him so far. Is he going to be like the great Kylie and disappear in a couple of years? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure what the longevity holds for him.
Well, I would definitely say Omos is going to be a fun attraction for now, and eventually Vince's going to get tired of him as he's not really going to be able to put on quality matches. That is what I would say. But then at the other side, you have guys like AJ Styles and MVP and even Bobby Lashley who've gone on the record that he's actually a really solid guy to work with. He's very reliable and he's making lots of progress. And if those veterans are saying that, I think that carries a little bit more than what us fans think of a guy like Omos. Now, of course, we are talking about WWE guys, and they're not easily gonna throw a fellow company guy under the bus. So perhaps they just play nice. But there might also just be actual merit behind the praise that Omos is getting from these veterans.
I think one thing's for sure with Vinnie Mac and WWE, though, nothing is certain, is it? No one's safe, other than if you call Roman Reigns, although, you know, that's another story. But, you know, if it's down to Omos and his ability, I think he's got the potential, if he can get rid of some of that, you know, that green that keeps following round. But if he can hone his skills a little bit and come under the right people, and I think MVP is a good person to put him with. But I do think he needs to move on from Bobby Lashley before we all get really bored of it.
At some point, definitely. Now, of course, like you did say, no one is safe. No one expected Braun Strowman to be released. Like, he's a big, tall guy, very powerful.
Man. Just up Vince's street as well.
Yeah, exactly Vince's type, and he didn't stick around, so... Yeah, I'm not saying Braun Strowman is not having a great career. I mean, he's setting up his own promotion for what it's worth. I know people have their opinions about controlling narrative, but he's still going to be a big part of that. He's still a former Universal Champion. He's had his WrestleMania moments, so he's definitely hasn't had a bad career, but people definitely did expect more.
I think you're right. And it's not over. He could return, couldn't he?
At some point, yeah. But of course, Strowman is a little bit older now, and we are going to stick to the under 30s, but, you know, as an example. Who do you got next?
I'd like to talk about Jade Cargill, who I believe is sort of further up the list. I think she might be 29. She's definitely under 30 anyway. And I just think, certainly from what you read online, again, whether it's true or not is another story, she seems to be getting the ratings for AEW. She's obviously the TBS women's champion. She's having a really good reign. She's doing the whole Goldberg undefeated stuff. And I just think it's working. So how long is that going to go on for? Is she going to end up maybe going to WWE? Because she's another person, apparently, that they really favour and really see her as a potential interest when a contract's up. What do you think?
Well, I think I can put Jade Cargill in a similar position as Omos, as Cargill has her fair share of critics online, and she is also green. But just like Omos, she has actually drawn ratings, whether that be YouTube hits or actually people tuning in to watch her matches. Um, so yeah, Jade Cargill uh, probably has quite a bright future. I mean, green, as we said, but that's everyone. Everyone's gonna be green until they get their experience, and she's getting her experience now. So that's
Mm-hmm.
uh, that's a positive outlook. And if she can keep up the momentum, keep up the name value that she's building right now, then yeah, she could definitely become a big face in women's wrestling.
100%. I'd be interested to see how. I don't know what a contract length is at the moment, but I'd be interested to see how long they can go with this undefeated streak because there's obviously only so many women available to go through. And at what point do you have to really look at that? And, you sort of polarizing the rest of the women's division, aren't you, after so long? A little bit like how people might feel with Roman Reigns at the moment. But
True.
yeah, I think Jade's got a bright future. I really do. I'm a big fan.
Jade Cargill definitely has a lot of upside. So we'll probably still be hearing of her in 10 years from a wrestling perspective.
Mm.
Now on to the next, and this is going to be a two for one. What do you think about the future of the Creed brothers?
Creed brothers, 2 for 1. I thought you were gonna ask me two questions there, man. But you're giving me a buy one get one free.
Absolutely.
Very good. Um, I really like the Creed brothers. I'll be honest, I'm only really now watching NXT. It's never really been my cup of tea, to say the least. But I've got a garnered interest now in watching it because one of the Creed brothers is on my team in our league, and at the end of the day, it's a nice breath of fresh air, really, from the mainstream product. Although I know, again, it's not where it used to be, according to a lot of people. But the Creed brothers, they've got age on the side. I think they're a very they form well as a tag team. They're not just thrown together. They really seem to have that.
Well, they are actual brothers, so
Oh, they brothers in real life,
they
right?
are actual brothers. Yeah,
Wow. I
brothers
thought it was
with
just an edging Christian thing. Oh, just gonna
no,
call you my brother.
it's also an Undertaker Kane type of thing. They are actual blood. So
Nice.
yeah,
The chemistry is real. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I see them being called up to the main roster within 12 months. But again, nothing is certain. What about yourself?
Uh, Within 12 months, there might be a bit of a stretch, I think, because there's one downside to the Creed brothers, and that they're as charismatic as wet paper towel. They need work on that, but
Don't let them in. But yeah.
they have legitimate wrestling background, like amateur wrestling. They've been at the Olympics, if I remember correctly, and yeah, they are legit badass dudes. So they can go in the ring. They definitely seem to understand physiology when it comes to matches.
Mm.
So yeah, lots of upside. Could be a tag team for the ages in the end.
Yeah. And definitely what I think Vince is looking for now, when you start looking at the landscape, it feels like he does want those kind of organic, athletic, who've done amateur wrestling, for example, or in the Olympics. Not
Absolutely.
mentioning um, the next person I'm going to talk about in a minute, but I think there's something, when it's so real and organic like that, where they've got that craft from having that skill from whether it be high school or university wrestling or in the Olympics. I do see a lot of I see a lot of potential in the Creed brothers. I think, like you say, they just need something to propel them forward, possibly a new mouthpiece, or whether they need to generate that themselves to get them more over.
I think the focus, especially since they are seem to be very tag team bound as brothers, they're probably going to be tag team for life as long as they're both going to wrestle.
Mm.
Um, so I don't think being able to talk and do good promos is gonna hold them back if they're not nailing that, but they need a bit of improvement on that because,
Mm,
at least when it comes to tag team wrestling, even in promos, you can kind of back each other up, and that is going to make things easier. It's always going to make things easier.
that's true. But I think it's a bold statement to say tag team for life when you've got Vinnie Mac breathing down your neck because he loves splitting people up, doesn't he? Can't
But he
resist.
he doesn't really tend to split up like legitimate blood, as the Bloodline is a perfect example of. The Usos have been together forever. They've
That's true.
I mean, I want to say they've never really had any singles feuds until Jim Uso was injured and Jay was pushed as Roman's right-hand man. But then again, still they're keeping blood together. So
That's true. Yeah, you make a good point actually. Touche, touche.
that's like the one thing Vince won't touch. It's family, which is really weird because he doesn't really seem too fussed about family in any other degree. But yeah. Then again, when it comes to building family, Stephanie and Triple H have always been together, even on screen since they've been married. Same with Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. Even when you had the mixed tag challenge, you had Jimmy Uso and Naomi. He values family from an in-ring, from a wrestling point of view. It's just easy to work around for Vince. So I think the Creed brothers will be safe as a tag team.
Well, it's on your head if not Marvin, because you've called it now. You've called it.
I apologize in advance.
Fantastic. Chad Gable is. Sorry, no, he's not. Not Chad Gable. That's the wrong Gable.
That's the wrong Gable.
Sorry. Stevenson?
I think it's Stevenson.
Yeah, it seems to cause a bit of confusion.
It's a bit of a weird name. It feels much more natural to say Stevenson, but yeah, Stevenson.
What are your thoughts on Gable Stevenson?
Well, we haven't seen anything from him from an in-ring point of view, of course, except for one move he did on Chad Gable at WrestleMania after the World Tag Team title match. But if we look at his background, he is an Olympic gold medalist. And if we look at the only other Olympic gold medalist to ever really transition to the world of wrestling, I mean, at least the only gold amateur wrestling medalist, I should say, that's Kurt Angle. Look at what Kurt Angle has been able to do. Like he's killed it in WWE. He's killed it in Impact. Like he was an highlight in Impact Wrestling. Then upon his return to WWE, it was all pretty good again. It doesn't matter when he was being serious or being silly, he made it work. So if Gable Stevenson has 10% the charisma that Kurt Angle has, then he's at least going to have a decent career.
That's true. I think that's the worry, though, as well, for me. We're yet to see, like you say, but Kurt Angle leaves big shoes to fill.
Very true.
It's a lot of pressure.
Kurt Angle has at least complemented his amateur wrestling skills, but then again, he is a gold medalist winner, so of course he's going to be good in that regard. And we all know that having that background, especially if you're very good at that background, is going to translate well to professional wrestling. So the odds of him being good in the ring are very high. The odds of him being very good on the mic and in promos, we honestly don't know.
That's true. It remains to be seen, but I think, surely this year I'm going to go out on one of those limbs again. We're going to see him in a ring. I know we've seen him in a ring, but in a match this year. Surely by the end of this year at the latest, there's got to be an impending, especially when it's supposed to be the first quarter of 2022.
Yep, he was supposed to be. He was supposed to debut by now already. And that hasn't happened yet, unless you call that in-ring segment with Chad Gable a debut, which I guess you can, but
yeah,
it's not exactly a in-ring debut. Nevertheless, I could definitely see Gabe Stevenson, especially being a no-name, as he is of course a professional athlete. He's likely going to go straight to Raw from what I've heard, and one program that I would love to see is Gabe Stevenson, the American hero, coming into to take down Austin Theory.
Yeah, that would be. Funnily enough, I was just thinking sort of around the US title picture, and obviously Theory is the current champion.
Absolutely.
What a way for him to come in and make a start and make an impact, no pun intended, and and just, you know, in a more serious way, even capture the belt, you know, a bit like Santino Marella back in the day with the IC title on his first match, even just something interesting like that just gets you from the beginning.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean it can definitely work from a program. It's just going to be a very simple good guy versus bad guy type stuff. Gabe Stevenson is your American hero. He brought gold for the country. He you know, he's beloved by the people, and he's going to go against a smug-faced Austin Theory that riles everyone up. So that's just a very easy story to tell.
yeah,
Gable's just gonna shut up Theory, and I think that could, yeah, potentially be the feud that ends Theory's reign.
could be, yeah, could be. I think he's in for a lengthy reign, so you know
True.
we are talking this year. I think that could sort of coincide very well, to be honest.
Could be SummerSlam, maybe even WrestleMania. Who knows?
It's true. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him if they wait this long. Maybe an entrant in the Royal Rumble, but then I've just kiboshed my own theory because that's January 2023. 2023. Yeah, so
Very true.
let's, you know, Money in the Bank briefcase holder. That might be a bit soon, but you know,
It will be very soon. And I think with Roman being the champion, you really need to capitalize on Money in the Bank to really make something out of that. I don't think Gabe Stevenson would be the type of guy to face Roman Reigns right now.
Yeah, I agree. It's too soon for that.
But what you are saying, if you put him in the Rumble, it's obviously going to be a great way to debut him. Rumble is always great for debuts.
Yeah, just as a
then you know
strong showing.
He is going to have that strong showing, and they're just going to do that classic of him throwing out Austin Theory. Austin Theory's pissed off, so he goes back into the ring and eliminates Gable Stevenson. That's going to set up the WrestleMania match. Doesn't even have to be for the title at that point.
There you go.
Yeah.
Where are these writers? Are they listening? Are they listening or what?
Hopefully they do. Hopefully they do. But since we have mentioned Austin Theory, I'd suggest we are going to move on to the man because he's also under 30. And in my opinion, seems to be a very prominent prospect. What do you think?
I think you're completely right. It's just, as we've talked about him then, he's got age on his side, you know, amongst other things. But I think from what we're hearing that he's going to potentially face Cena, or, you know, the Vince wants him to be the next John Cena. Again, big shoes to fill. But for me, if anyone can do it, it's this guy. You know, he's shown at Mania in the match. Well, I know he was involved in terms of the segment with Vince McMahon and Pat McAfee, but he's shown that
he had the original match against Pat McAfee.
He did. Yeah, you're right, actually.
Which was a really cool match.
Vinnie Mac ruined it. Just confused everything for everyone. But I think he's got so much potential. I think, you know, he really has got the sort of the look and the face of potentially the future of the business. And I think there's a lot that he can bring to the table, potentially as a face in the future as well, much like Cena, really.
I absolutely agree. He definitely has charisma. He can go in the ring. And again, he's very young, and he's already in such promising storylines, and the people he's already worked with, he's definitely learning from that. And with all that behind you, it's nearly impossible to not have a great career. Pretty much the only thing he has to do is stay healthy.
Yeah, that's true. Or hopefully nobody changes their mind and just throws his opportunity away.
Very, very true.
I can see him having a very solid US title reign that means something. You know, nothing against Damien Priest, but his reign was a little bit hit and miss in my opinion. But I feel like he's starting as he means to go on. I think he could hold that belt well into the rest, you know, later this year, past SummerSlam.
Absolutely. So who's next on your list?
Well, another person who came to mind for me, going back over to the yellow and black brand or whatever. Well, it's not that anymore. It's a multicolored brand. NXT 2.0. Um,
It's the rainbow
none
of all
other
rainbows.
than Braun Breaker.
Braun Breaker.
And
I
it's just hand, that's all it is.
I can't believe I didn't actually put him on my list, but then again he kind of wrestles like a veteran,
You see,
and he's a big dude,
he's
and
miles ahead,
he's
isn't he? He's light years ahead for me. You even
absolutely.
forgot he was under 30, but he's
I
a big dude.
I completely forgot that as well. He is under 30. So yeah, uh, yeah, Braun Breaker. He's definitely going to be something in wrestling. The
Mm,
uh, the only danger, because I don't want to make this too boring, the only danger that Braun Breaker has is that he's very explosive in the ring, and that could potentially make him a little bit injury prone down the line, especially if he is going to get a little bit older. If he is
mm.
going to get past his 30s and still going to have that same intensity match after match, he might want to tone it down just a little bit for the non-event matches.
Mm.
So,
Yeah,
to keep that longevity.
let's hope he doesn't slip on a banana skin and get an injury now, Marvin. You just said that. Otherwise, you're going to have a very angry Scott Steiner and Rick Steiner coming at you, Hall of Famers.
I'm jinxing everyone tonight.
I know. I'm just waiting for the news article when it gets this. That's like, yeah, Braun Breaker. I mean, I even like the name, because they come up with some stupid names.
Oh yeah.
That's a story for another time. But what a big sort of initial reign. I know he lost the belt to Dolph Ziggler for a bit and got it back. Seems to be in a good position leading that NXT brand into the future to 2 point whatever. But at the end of the day, I do see a main roster call up again. Could be the Rumble. I always sort of think of the Rumble because it's like the beginning of the year and it's like a reset. But
Pretty much.
maybe sooner than the Rumble. I mean, we need some main event caliber people, really. I think that's what is happening at the moment. Doesn't seem like there's that many big men slapping man meat going on. So let's call him up, Vince. Get it done.
The only issue I would have with Braun Breaker in WWE's landscape right now is that he wouldn't really stand out amongst the titans that we have for the world title picture now, and I don't think you uh wanna push him down towards the mid card. I think when you do eventually call him up, especially after the run he's had on NXT, you want to have him in the upper mid card, and you know Sheamus would be someone he can work with as another big strong dude. But he's currently already in a feud, and Sheamus is just one guy. And Breaker at this point is not going to be Reigns. He's not going to be Drew. And what other Titans do you have on the main roster right now?
Yeah, you make a good point, and I also think he's still got a lot to learn. Again, not taken away from what he's done, but I think there's still gas in the tank, as it were. There's still fuel to go a little bit further before we start looking at that. And the landscape could be completely different by the end of the year because Vince
Absolutely.
might find even more people. So, no one is safe, Marvin. No one is safe. I'm telling you. But yeah, Braun Breaker is at the top of my, 10-year vision. I just see Braun Breaker at the top, probably with Theory. Them two, I feel, are going to be potentially the biggest breakout stars of the next 10 years. And in 10 years, I'm going to rewatch this and go, there you go. And Marvin injured him, but never mind. And what it could have been.
Such a promising career. If only he didn't tear his, I don't know, his
Yeah,
Achilles.
high hopes. Definitely high hopes for him. He's
Uh,
got wrestling in his blood.
absolutely.
So he's better at maths than.
I hope he's better at wrestling than his family is at math. Absolutely.
Yeah. Who's your
Um.
next pick?
Well, I kind of want to tie this into Braun Breaker. I kind of wanted to move away from WWE and AEW for the next one, but we can
Okay.
save them. Braun Breaker with one of his top performances, I think, really career and name making performance was at War Games,
Mm.
and the that was of course NXT Black and Gold versus NXT 2.0 with Ciampa and Breaker facing off each other. That was before Breaker became the NXT champion.
Yeah.
There are two guys that were in Breaker's team that I have very high hopes of. Maybe not as future main eventers, probably not, but definitely as the type of guys who are going to be a backbone of the division. We're going to carry your B-level pay-per-views with great Intercontinental Championship matches. One of them, the one I want to start off with, is Grayson Waller. How much do you know of Grayson Waller?
I'll be completely honest, Marvin. Not a lot, because the NXT superstars I'm still learning about, and if they're not on my team in our league, I don't care. But
Fair enough.
I know he's been battling for these at the North American Championship a little bit.
Kinda, a little bit. After War Games, I had really high hopes for Breaker after War Games, but for some reason that just didn't really work out. He lost a lot. He lost pretty much every feud, and he seems to be kind of working his way back up right now. So I don't know who he pissed off backstage, but it seems to be definitely someone, because this dude in the War Games match really showed that he has passion with the kind of stunts that he was pulling off. It really reminded me of a AJ Styles back in TNA, which is the best AJ Styles, and that is what we saw out of Grayson Waller. And you know, AJ Styles is legitimately one of my two favorite wrestlers of all time. So when I compare it to AJ Styles, I mean that. I mean your big business.
In an elite club, some might say.
An elite club. Absolutely. But yeah, Grayson Waller is amazing in the ring. I don't know what they've been doing with him on NXT. For some reason, they just haven't really put him on TV. And then again, you don't know if that's going to mean anything at this point, because Rick Boogs was doing nothing on NXT, or Eric Buchenhagen as he was called in NXT, and now he has a feud against Happy Corbin. And Corbin is, I mean, despite what people think of Corbin, he's quite high on Vince McMahon's list. Like, he's always in feuds, he's always on TV. So getting a win over Corbin proves that Vince definitely has plans for you. While in NXT, he did nothing, absolutely nothing. So hopefully, Grayson Waller's going to be the same.
Yeah, I think, like you say, he just maybe needs to recover and build his win records back up and all the rest of it. And let's face it, people have got it. You need superstars in NXT just like you need them on Raw and SmackDown. You can't automatically just bring obviously everybody up or majority of people up. We need reliable, good workers in that NXT picture. So again, although I'm not overly familiar with him, if he's been there a while and he's a bit more of a veteran maybe, or he's working his way back up.
Oh, he's rather new on NXT.
Oh, right, okay.
Like, he was on NXT 2.0, so he was legit one of the new recruits going into the new era of NXT.
Right, okay.
Fair enough. Yeah, to see Tony D'Angelo get feud after feud after feud, whether he wins or loses. Carmelo Hayes, who I do want to mention in a little bit, became the North American champion and had his own little bodyguard. And Braun Breaker, of course, killed NXT. Like, he's on the top of the mountain by a landslide. To see Grayson Waller do nothing out of those four, that just was really surprising to me.
Until now, Marvin, because Vince McMahon listens to these podcasts and has cameras bugged everywhere, it seems. Absolutely. So suddenly, he's going to be pushed to the moon. I'm telling you. You heard it here first.
Pushed to the moon. Does that mean he is going to actually dethrone Cameron Grimes if he has North American title?
Yeah. Who knows? So a lot of activity there.
I am going to let you go next, but since I've already mentioned him and since he was part of that same War Games team, let's go over to Carmelo Hayes.
Yeah.
Because that's a dude with quite some promise, if you'd ask me. And he's still quite young. Definitely seems to have heart.
Late 20s?
How old is he? I think he's 24, but I'm actually gonna have to Google
Oh,
that.
okay. Still very young then.
Carmelo Hayes age. No, 27 actually. Still in the 30.
Making him a lot younger. In fairness, though,
Uh,
again, I know less about him because I'm new to the NXT scene. But again, I know that he's been tangoing with the North American NXT belt. Is he the champion at the minute, or is he not?
he lost it at the last. It's not called Takeover anymore, but at the last NXT event, he
Yeah,
lost it
I
in the ladder
thought
match.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah, because is it Cameron Grimes who's the
it is.
current
It is
champion?
Cameron Grimes now. Yes.
Right. Okay. But again, he's still very much, from what I can see anyway, present in the weekly show and in the rivalries around that belt because they
Ab-
keep having like three ways and stuff, don't they?
Absolutely. The current feud with Cameron Grimes in his North American title is including Carmelo Hayes and Solo Sikoa, which is of course
Mm.
the third Uso, as you could call
Yeah.
him. Yeah, he's doing really well. And just to look at the kind of year he's had, he had that War Games match where he did really well. He then won the breakout tournament, or he won it before that. I'm not entirely sure. I'm getting mixed up with my timeline. Uh, then of course
Easily done.
being the breakout tournament winner, he he started teaming up with Trick Williams as his bodyguard, so he
Mm.
seemed to be kind of a threat. And then he just won the North American title, easy. And he's kept that for quite a long time. So Carmelo Hayes is off to a good start, at least when it comes to NXT.
Yeah. Again, NXT is the breeding ground for greatness, as it were. It is you know, they want people under 30, apparently, don't they? That's what Vince has said. We want people
Yeah,
under 30, not because I'm busy mates with him, but that's what the internet said. And we always believe everything that's on the internet. But
absolutely. That's why
NXT,
that's why you need to believe every single word you hear on this podcast right now, because it is brought to you by
exactly.
the power of the internet.
Yeah, I think he's got a bright future if he's still got a job at this point, to be honest. Because, like I say,
Yeah.
you can't take that for granted in NXT and WWE at the moment.
I mean, I'm quite surprised that they've pushed him the way they did, because when NXT 2.0 was kind of starting, it actually was before that he won the breakout tournament, because he started the breakout tournament in the NXT Black and Gold era.
Mm.
And I thought, all right, this is going to be weird for guys like Carmelo Hayes, who just won the breakout tournament, because they now want to move on to these young but big dudes. And Carmelo Hayes is young, but he's not a big dude. And yet he still did really, really well on NXT. So
Mm.
that was definitely interesting to see, and it just shows that it's not all about the big muscly man for WWE at this point.
That's true.
Even if it
Big
is
E
the
might
main.
disagree, but that is true.
I mean, you say Biggie might disagree, but he's not really teaming with two big and powerful dudes now, is he? He's working with light heavyweights and Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. So even Big E likes smaller dudes as well from time to time.
This is true. But they're his brothers,
Absolutely.
he wants to be the biggest guy in there, doesn't he? Hence his name.
Absolutely. So
Cool.
now that we've had that corner of NXT 2.0, who do you get next?
Going back over to AEW, I've got to mention Darby Allen, the one and only. I think he's higher up on in the late 20s bracket. I'm pretty sure.
I
Um,
I was checking and I think he was 29.
okay, just in time, because
Just
he did say 30 and less. So if he just turned 30, happy birthday, Darby Allen. But if not, this guy has a
let's
lot of
check to be
promise.
sure.
Yeah. Um, I think that the only thing that to be a bit of a negative Nancy about it is he is a small guy. Is he ever really going to be a heavyweight division? But then you can look at Rey Mysterio, but then there's not that many who have got the big one who are that size or that style of wrestling. But a lot of people are portraying him like a younger Jeff Hardy, and he's got the association with Sting as well, which can only add to his credibility. So what do you think, Marvin?
I mean, like you said, the size doesn't really have to be a problem, because if we look at people who aren't really as big, We have Rey Mysterio, who's made a very successful career everywhere he went. He has been
Mhm.
successful. We have Jeff Hardy, former World Heavyweight Champion, former WWE Champion. We
Mm.
have,
He's smaller than Jeff Hardy, though. I mean, that's the only thing I think. Anyway, he seems quite skinny and smaller than Jeff Hardy. In
yeah, I mean,
fairness,
if you look at the Jeff Hardy that we had against Edge and CM Punk, like back in 2010, that wasn't a big Jeff Hardy. Like, you put him some weight with age.
mm.
So, yeah, younger Jeff Hardy was definitely not a big dude. He, I mean,
Yeah,
Darby Allin is still smaller than Jeff Hardy was back then, but I think the point still stands.
yeah. I'm just playing devil's advocate, and I'm not
Oh
telling you
yeah,
anything you don't
absolutely,
already know.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of potential to do really well because clearly he's very behind. The fans are very behind him. He's got a good following. As I pointed out before, to have the Stinger in your corner, Daddy Sting, he's supposed to be his son or brother, whatever. But he just brings a real presence with his character. He's got ace theme music as well. So, and I love the little vignettes and things they do with flipping coffins sliding down hills and helicopters dragging bodies along and all kinds of crazy. He should have been arrested by now, Marvin. Let's face it. He's committed some crimes. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
But he is a badass guy. Um, Someone I would like to be friends with if he didn't like chop my arm off or something. But yeah, he means business. I think means business.
I think one thing you definitely you didn't directly mention it, but you pointed it out. There's one very big upside about Darby Allin. It's not necessarily his in-ring skill, but it's also the fact that he is a character. He has that down. He has the entertainment part of wrestling down, despite not everyone liking entertainment, as they say with
Yeah.
wrestling. You do. You do like your entertainment. You do like Stone Cold for being Stone Cold. You do like The Rock for being The Rock. And you do like The Undertaker
Mm-hmm.
for being The Undertaker. The characters are very, very important. And
True.
Darby Allin has character.
Yeah. I believe pushes a lot of merchandise as well. Like, you can believe how successful he is because he's very different, isn't he? He's unlike anyone on the AW roster when you look. Um, and yeah, his in-ring style can be very unique as well. He's a daredevil. I'll give him that.
Absolutely. In that regards, of course, people compare him to Sting and to Jeff Hardy with a lot of
Mm,
reason, because they were the Daredevils as well, and look how far that got them. Like,
mm,
again, Sting, as kind of the Crow, he did the Joker thing. He was the icon in TNA. He had
yeah.
character. Jeff Hardy, the charismatic enigma, he had character. Darby Allin has character. He's the Daredevil. Uh, those are all very big key components of what is going to make someone a star in wrestling, because it's not just going to be the in-ring skill. And Darby Allin has the skill, and he also has all the other extras needed. So practically all he
Mm,
needs to do is just go out there and continue building his legacy.
yeah. He's got everything on his side. I don't think it hinders him that he's 29. I think, yeah, he's in the higher age bracket for us there for this discussion. But, as we've seen, age really, he could wrestle for the next 25 years. Although with his style, maybe not. But
Well,
the
then again,
potential.
Jeff Hardy and Sting are still wrestling today, so
Well, yeah, actually, and Sting's
you
having some of the best matches he's had in a long time.
you can argue
Uh,
if they should wrestle at this point, but they still wrestle.
yeah, I mean, I think that's a disclaimer for Ric Flair right there, but another discussion for another
Uh,
time.
you know what? We are talking about the future of wrestling, and next up we want to talk about Ric Flair, because that guy's gonna wrestle until he's 95.
Ric Flair is the future of wrestling, Marvin. Have you no
Absolutely.
respect for the man? He's the nature boy,
Uh,
standing and profiling.
absolutely. Uh,
Um,
well,
yeah, Darby Allen is. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. To be fair,
absolutely.
if he can stay healthy.
Just want to move on from those big two, the WWE and the AEW.
Yeah.
We're gonna move on to the next, and I want to talk about a guy called Richard Holiday.
Ah.
because
Nice
he's
leverage.
just under 30. I I want to get Alexander Hammerstone in, but when I looked him up, he's 31, so he's eliminated from this list. We gotta have rules. So
Yeah,
Richard Holiday is
it's
gonna have
not
to do
good
it.
enough, is it? He's just a year too old, going off.
So yeah, what do you make of Richard Holiday?
Again, much like NXT, it's MLW is a that's right, isn't it? MLW
MLW,
um,
absolutely.
is a very new thing to me. I'll be honest and say, and so I reserve judgment as always. How old is Richard Holiday? About mid-20s.
I want to say 28 or 29, but
Okay,
let's
a bit
ask
closer
Google.
to the yeah.
I did
Well,
I did do
I
my
reserve.
homework. I do know he's below 30 before people think otherwise. I just
There
don't
you
know
go.
the exact age anymore.
That's fine, no problem. Um, I reserve judgment, but from what the limited that I've seen, I think he has a presence about him, and I think he's a solid. He's got solid in-ring skills that mean that he could easily move on to some. Again, not against anything against MLW, but he could move on to a bigger promotion in the future. Perhaps could turn some heads. It's a starting point. I honestly believed he was going to win the heavyweight championship and I was going to get some points, but no, didn't happen. But I do think, as I say, he's got something about him. I think it depends where the chips fall. If he can get noticed and move on up the pecking order, to a bigger company.
Yeah. Richard Holiday, he can work. He can pace out a match really well in just like a bit of a traditional face versus heel style, which I think MLW does really well.
Mm.
Uh, then also the fact that Holiday just has a whole lot of swagger, just bringing that really smugness that we also discussed with like Austin Theory. Richard Holiday has that as
Yeah.
well. Um, and I'm not gonna say he's a great talker, because I do think he can work a little bit on that, but he is comfortable speaking. He's comfortable doing promos, and I think that's
Mm.
a great start. Starting to become great at promos is by making yourself comfortable doing it, or at least appearing comfortable doing
Mm.
them. So yeah, that's just going to improve with time. And yeah, in the ring, he can go. He's been a highlight for MLW for me. I've only started watching recently, as recommended by fellow friends of ours. And
Mm.
there are two guys that just really stole the show for me. Richard Holiday is one of them. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think, like you say, somebody catches your eye, like that, and I think, sometimes, certainly with old school, like you say, face and heel, and knows how to really do that well. I think that can be a bit of a lost art in wrestling now. Some of those traditional ways of doing things can work really well, and hopefully that stands him in good stead. And I'm hoping he's going to win the heavyweight title at some point very, very soon, preferably this month if possible.
you and your bias.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think like watch this space. That's what I would say. And I'm only saying about him coming to a bigger promotion because the more eyeballs on him and what he can do, and at the end of the day, open him up to a whole new fan base.
Yeah. Uh, do you have anyone from MLW on your list?
Yes, I still have some more to be fair.
From Major League Wrestling?
Oh, sorry, not from
Okay.
MLW. Apologies.
Then I just
Uh,
want to close the chapter with the next one, which
go
is
for it. Yeah, yeah.
the
Go for it.
current. He is the current and also three-time world middleweight champion, and that's Myron Reed.
Mm.
Have you seen anything of Myron Reed
Again, along the similar lines
along
with
the similar
MLW.
lines?
Yeah,
Sorry, that's
but
me.
again, he's a regular because I know obviously with MLW, not everybody in terms of the TV time, not everybody's as regular as some. But I just feel like he puts in solid matches, and equally, he does do quite a few title defenses as well. And I think
Absolutely.
his. I think he's again. Is he mid-20s? I don't know. He's got something about him, I think, but you know, I'm
24.
still undecided. Not as much a fan of like Richard Holiday. in terms of the jury's still out for me on him, just a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair. I think when it comes to the in-ring aspect, he's solid. Like he's 24. He's not the greatest you'll ever see, but he's 24. So with time, with experience, there's always room for improvement, of course. One thing that I was very surprised with Myron Reed as well is he's also really comfortable being on the microphone. I think you can say that for a lot of guys in MLW actually. Even if it doesn't really always work, even if it doesn't always comes out the way they probably want it, or not as cool or as vicious or whatever you want to call it, as they want to try with the promos. They're all very comfortable doing promos. So whoever is fixing that at MLW, they're doing a great job setting them up for the future.
That's true. And I think, mic skills isn't always something that can be, learned. Or I think sometimes you've either got it or you've not. And I think, yes, you can improve, but if you've at least, for me anyway, like we were talking about a bit before about being in the entertainment value of it, if you're good on the stick and you've got a good character, most people don't even care, me included, if you can do a 5-star match. Steve Austin probably doesn't have that many 5-star matches under his belt, as far as I'm concerned, but he brought eyeballs to the product because of his character and his time on the stick.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think you have to explain that to everyone, that if you're going to be in a feud with Vince McMahon, you're not going to bring out 5-star matches. However, it is the biggest feud of the Attitude Era. It's Stone Cold versus Vince McMahon.
That's true.
So yeah, the entertainment value is very important for a wrestler. Maybe even more important than the in-ring skill. I mean, the in-ring skill helps building a following, but in the end, people do actually want to get entertained. They want to have the good stories. They want to get behind people.
And I think that's why it's difficult, isn't it? Because certainly for me, I can appreciate a 5-star match, as it were, if you want to call it that. But if, like you're saying, if you've got this bunch of wrestlers who can do a great match, fab. But what about the characters? What about the storylines? What about what brings it all together? It's basically a soap opera with steel chairs, isn't it? That's what it is. For me, it's like Coronation Street if you're from the UK and you know what that is, with steel chairs and flaming tables. But if you've not got those elements that are pulling people in, the wrestling is just wrestling, which is great to admire, and we'll clap along like they do in Japan. But for me, there's got to be something to grasp your, sink your teeth into. And I think that applies to a lot of, for the mainstream, when you want to get eyeballs on the product.
Absolutely.
So yeah, definitely.
I mean, if we look at the people we've talked about so far, we'll have your Richard Holiday, who's all right when it comes to character. You do have MJF, who probably isn't the biggest wrestler, but his character work is phenomenal. Then you have a Braun Breaker, who's just very explosive. And if you put that all together, then you get a wrestling landscape that's just very nice and diverse and brings a little bit of everything. And I think that's what you need for good event cards. Like, you need to have good stories, but people also want to see quality wrestling. And it's going to be very hard to put that in the same match. But if you can bring a bit of everything across like a card, you can have just a phenomenal card that people are going to enjoy, that everyone can enjoy. And maybe they're not going to like every single bit of that card, but they're definitely going to have something that they like about the card. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, definitely. You're not always going to have, like you say, 5-star matches on every card or whatever it might be. There's many examples of that. It's like Rock and Hogan WrestleMania, by technical standards, isn't great, but it's the atmosphere and what it means and everything else that comes into it. And I think if you've got a mix of that throughout the card, fantastic. It's, that's the perfect card, isn't it? If ever there was one.
Yeah, true.
Definitely.
So who do you get next? Who's gonna add to this diversity of wrestling?
Yeah, I'm gonna come away back to the mainstream, I'm afraid, because Vince McMahon's paying me by the hour, so I'm gonna have to bring it back to Vinnie Mac's home. Raw superstar Liv Morgan for me. Um, Interesting. What comes to mind when I mention Liv Morgan for you, Marvin?
Um, when you mention Liv Morgan, I just think back about her entire career that she's had so far, and what I see is progress. Like, when it comes to her in-ring abilities, she's grown. When it comes to her character work, she's grown. Carrying herself, going from this girl in a faction that barely anyone cared about after 2 months in the Riot Squad, she has now moved on to being actually in a non-title feud on Raw, which is still quite hard for women to be in a non-title
Mm,
feud. And admittedly, it's with Finn Balor and AJ Styles and Priest and Edge. But she's still in a feud that doesn't involve a title, and that's rather impressive. Considering she
mm,
is working with Finn Balor and AJ Styles at the moment, she's going to learn from that. Considering she is
yeah.
working with Edge and Damian Priest, also veterans, she's going to learn from that. And she's
Mm,
already been growing. She's been growing a lot, so if she can continue that growth, then I can definitely see her become a multiple time champion, at least in WWE.
mm. I think you're right, mate, and I think that's the problem in some ways of the timing of it, isn't it? So she came close to having her first women's title reign, Raw women's title reign, which of course didn't work out. I think it was the end of last year, or yeah, like certainly in the last 6 months.
Yeah,
And I
she was
feel
in
like
Becky Lynch feud. Yeah.
yeah, and I think people really thought that she'd stepped up and this could have even been it. But knowing where we were going for Mania,
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't the time. But again, I brought her up because I think she's got a lot of potential, and I think again being so young can only be an advantage to her, as we've talked about. It's just in a crowd. I say in a crowded sea of women wrestlers because there's loads been released, and we couldn't even find 30 for the Royal Rumble. But what seems like a crowded main event scene, I'm going to say, because you've got champions like Bianca Belair who clearly aren't losing that title anytime soon. If you lose it next week, Bianca, I do apologise for just yeah. And certainly going looking at Ronda Rousey, who's only just won the belt, heaven forbid. I don't think she's going to be losing it anytime soon. And that's not to say that then they can't thrive and they can't do well and get over. But it really feels like, certainly on Raw, there's a bit of a glass ceiling for me, and there's a lot of potential great women wrestlers there. Zelina Vega, for example, Doudrop, not with that name though, horrendous name. At the end of the day, you need obviously big women to go again, as in big, as in popular
Yeah.
feuds, as you've just mentioned. I'm not going to say a name because she's on my list and probably on yours, who we'll talk about. But tying into her in a moment, I think she's getting there, Liv Morgan. We just need to see that next sort of step, really. She needs to kick it up a little bit. I think she's got the potential, but is she under the Vinnie Mac glass ceiling of the main event scene, if you like, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, I think the fact that she's had this feud with Becky Lynch is very promising because
Mm,
Becky Lynch is pretty much the top of the food chain at this point when it comes to women's wrestling. Of course, she's not the champion right now, but we both know that you can be at the top of the food chain without being champion.
yeah,
That there's something beyond that. And Becky Lynch just sells merch. She even sells tickets. And Bianca is a fine champion right now. Ronda is a fine champion. At least I would agree with that. But yeah, having that feud with Becky and being able to get close to Becky definitely shows that there's some sort of backing behind her. That they don't just want to have it be like a one and done. All right, Becky's gonna have a feud for this pay-per-view, and after that, we're gonna move on to the next person. They definitely
mm,
seemed invested in her. I think this was a great trial run to see what she can do. People really got
yeah,
behind her. And now, of course, like I mentioned, she's in quite a big feud. She's with really big names. She's with a former women's champion in Rhea Ripley, which is kind of a big deal. She's with the former United States champion Damian Priest in the same feud. She's with a Hall of Famer, Natch, and she's with veterans and former world champions of AJ Styles and Finn Balor. That's not a spot you get if if there's not at least one person who's really, really behind you backstage.
I think it can only benefit her, like you say, being
Absolutely.
around those people.
I think I did mention the person you wanted to discuss next.
Yes.
So, by all means, go ahead.
Beginning with Rhea Ripley. She's from Australia. I was just going to say the Aussie powerhouse, but I don't know if she's from Australia. I'm just going to say that right now.
I'm not sure
She's
if
got
she's
that
from.
accent. She's got that down under accent, so I'm going to
Yeah,
roll with it. And I hope you're not offended, Rhea Ripley, if you're not from Australia.
she
I'll
she
Google
is
it in a bit.
she is from the Oceania district. I'm not sure if it's Australia or New Zealand. I think it's Australia.
Okay,
But
we're
but she's
close enough.
she's from one of the two. That's for
We
sure.
might not be hopping on kangaroos, but we're close enough, Parlors, but we're close enough.
Uh,
um, yeah, I think she's got the whole package. Look, good character. Certainly now, I think she'll come into her own. We're finally turning heel, and I'm liking where it's going with Edge's faction. It's just again maybe a similar issue to Liv Morgan. Really, I don't see unless she's going to win the belt from Bianca Belair, which could be a good SummerSlam match for me. It's just how you get there, and it's what you do until then. And I
yeah.
think she's not had that many victories lately. When you look back over the last 6 months, she's been in a few dud. Like she has the tag team with Becky Ash and Nikki Ash. Just making up wrestlers' names. Liv Morgan as well, and I just think
Yeah.
I need to see some real shine. I think it's coming, but I'm just waiting for it.
I think it's the great merit for a heel turn as well. Like she's been in all these tag teams, and she's just been constantly let down because she wasn't at the top of the world. She dethroned Shayna Baszler, the most dominant NXT Women's Champion. She then went on to become the Raw Women's Champion and had a
Yeah,
great run at that. And she's just been killing it on the main roster ever since. And now, within kayfabe, she's getting screwed over by these other women who don't know what to do. And now she's joining up with people who do know what to do in Edge and Damian Priest. So I think this is a great place for it because, like you mentioned, Bianca Belair is not going to lose anytime soon. Ronda Rousey's definitely not going to lose anytime soon. And there are plenty of other people who the belts can go to. Like if you are going to dethrone someone, it's probably going to be Bianca Belair. I think Ronda Rousey is a bit too much of a box office draw for that. And if Bianca's going to lose, she's going to lose to, I want to say Becky Lynch, but that would be boring. But I can't see it happening.
100%. I don't think she'll be near that title scene for a little while. Certainly not holding it anyway.
Of course, you have Asuka. Asuka is just great as champion, and whenever she is around the title picture, she's bound to win it eventually. So it could definitely be Asuka. And if they do want to try something new, then I think they're going to go with Liv Morgan when it comes to Raw. Or maybe in time, they're going to move someone over from SmackDown because Raquel Gonzalez is a great future champion as well. I don't think Ripley is going to be a champion anytime soon. So being in this feud, or at least in this faction with Judgment Day, is just really something to keep her busy until there's a spot for her at the top again. And I think that's good.
Relevant, isn't it?
Yeah, keeps her relevant without needing a title, and I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think you made a good point actually, and it's not all about being the champion. I mean, we all want to be the champion, obviously, but
of course,
there can be other, and I think maybe that's what needs to happen on Raw. We need some other women's feuds that aren't just about let's throw everyone in the title picture, and I think that's where a certain tag team were trying to make a point, but again, maybe a future conversation for that one.
For that, we probably need another hour, and we don't have that, so we're not going to do that.
I'm going to give you my last pick, if that's okay, and then I shall be leaving you. But I'm going to throw in someone in the mix from SmackDown who we've not really seen much from, who is under 30 and has a lot of potential, in my opinion. And he goes by the name of Mansoor, all the way from Saudi Arabia. Ooh. And what the question everybody wants to know, Marvin, is where is Mansoor and what are we going to do with him? because we know that WWE are big on this Saudi relationship, and they're just not. They've still not found a Saudi star. Is he the man? What do you think?
Well, there's definitely merit in that. If they want to continue growing their Saudi Arabia audience, then I can definitely see Mansoor not become a world champion like Jinder did, but he could definitely become an intercontinental champion. I think that would fit him well. However, I think it's somewhat clear why Mansoor isn't really being shown a lot at this point. I think it's to do with the future that Vince sees in his company, and Mansoor is not a big dude. Mansoor is not a former athlete, for as far as I know, and Mansoor just really has that indie vibe to him, you know.
Yeah,
And I don't think that that's what Vince wants. So one or two things might be happening right now with Mansoor. Um, Actually, one or three. They might just be keeping him for the next Saudi show because I think they still have a few contracted for those.
October, I think the next one is,
Okay,
or end of September.
could be. Uh, so yeah, I think they might be keeping him for the Saudi shows and not doing much else with him. They might just bring him back to an NXT or maybe even the Performance Center to get him to get that WWE work style in him.
Mm-hmm.
To make sure that he's a WWE guy, because at the
Yeah.
moment he's not. Or third, Vince or perhaps Nick Khan is gonna look at the spreadsheet of people who work for them, realize Mansoor is still on that list, and is gonna get featured in Everett.
It's a sad time to think like that, and you know, nobody's safe, as we've talked about. And I do agree. I think he's not being used. It doesn't look good for him, does it? But the
No,
reason I bring him up is I think, as you've said, not because he can be a world champion, and you know, fair play to the lad if he wants to become one, and he does. Fair play. Well done,
absolutely.
Mansoor. But at the end of the day, like days of glory days gone by, you need solid mid to upper card IC champions, US champions, tag team champions. Some people are just never meant to be world champion, as we know. So many amazing people weren't, like Mr. Perfect and Scott Hall and so on, Razor Ramon, I should say. But my point I'm making here is someone like Mansoor, certainly to reach over into the Saudi Arabia money pot, which is being well and truly milked. You know, he's right there. You get him in a feud with Ricochet, get I said a US title then, an IC title reign under his belt. Maybe form a tag. Well, they love forming tag teams with people, randomers, but just anything. Do something with him. But will it? Who knows?
That's probably what kind of killed Mansoor as well, because he was teaming and then feuding with Mustafa
Cesaro.
Ali.
Yeah. Oh, and he did a brief tag team run with Cesaro, which was
Yeah,
a bit.
and of course Ali went on hiatus. He's back now, but he went on
Yeah.
hiatus. Cesaro didn't resign, so everything that from
Not no
Mansoor just
friends,
kind
has
of
he? His friends have all gone.
absolutely. So that might be it as well. There might just be nothing creative for him, and they're still trying to figure out where they want to put him. That's option four.
Mm.
If it's not waiting for Saudi, if it's not him training, and if it's not him getting featured endeavored, it's just him being in creative limbo.
Yeah, which happens a lot, amazingly.
Yeah.
Have you got anybody else you wanted to throw out there?
Uh, I still have a bit of a list. There are so many people we could talk about, but there's one person that I definitely want to mention, and that is one Wheeler Yuta.
Ah, yes. I'm glad you brought him up.
So, what do you make of Wheeler Yuta? Where do you see him in 10 years?
Again, I'll be honest and say, from my understanding from AEW television and until recently, should I say, I perceived him as a bit of a jobber, and he never really won that many matches. Just kind of got fed, to people, just like people like Dante Martin are doing at the moment, and that kind of thing. But a big but, may I say, now that he's getting his shine with Regal, Moxley, and Danielson, in the Blackpool Combat Club. I think I've got that right, if I
You did.
remember the name of the stable.
Yep.
Bit of a weird name, but there you go. Now that he's getting the rub with those guys, I really think, with age on his side, the reason we're bringing him up, I think he's got a lot of potential. He holds a belt, doesn't he? Is it a Ring of Honor belt? Is it Ring of Honor Pure Champion? Or have I made that up?
I honestly wouldn't know.
He's got a belt. That's the main thing. He has a belt, which isn't an AW belt. Oh, sorry, Vinny Mac, we can't say belt. He has a championship title. But, again, the
He
fact
is
that...
he is indeed the current Ring of Honor Pure Champion.
There you go. Just for Marvin getting the facts out there. So, anyway, Wheeler Yuta, it remains to be seen for me. You know, the jury's still out for me, as with a few others I've mentioned tonight. But age is on his side. He's with the right people. Watch this space. I think he could be, as an Asian wrestler who we need, you know, the kind of wrestlers we need more of, really, as a mix in the promotion. I think he could be a big star to tap into that market as well.
Yeah. One of the problems using air quote marks is that a lot of the Japanese wrestlers are obviously wrestling in Japan, in BJW, New Japan, or whatever, and they don't really make the crossover to Western audiences until they're in their late 30s. So this is something that Wheeler Yuta has over all his fellow Japanese wrestlers. He's 25, and he's on... Can you call it mainstream TV? I think at this point you can call AEW mainstream TV.
You
Uh,
certainly can
or,
call AEW mainstream TV, Marvin.
or at
Come
least
on,
close. Or at
Vinny
least
McMahon
close.
better not be paying you money here to downplay TK and his big franchise. Come on.
I know I'm not too familiar with American broadcasters, so but perhaps people would say, well, it's not that big of a broadcaster. Maybe, I don't know. It's not my wheelhouse. I'm here to talk about wrestling, not TV deals.
Yeah.
So yeah, but Wheeler Yuta is at least on Western TV, wrestling for the second biggest promotion out there right now, which is not an opinion, it's fact, it's what people talk about. So yeah, that him already having this Western exposure, him working with two amazing veterans in Danielson and Regal, him working with a deathmatch specialist, which you can definitely learn quite a lot from, John Moxley, who also has a fairly good amount of years under his belt at this point.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much you can learn from those three guys. So not only does Wheeler Yuta have the tools of exposure by being on AEW TV right now, he also has the tools of experience that he gets from the people he's working with. That combined with the fact that he's just 25, that combined with the fact that Japanese wrestlers often really tend to go until well in their 50s. Like that's a very strong average for Japanese wrestlers. That means he has so many years ahead of him. So even if this Blackpool Combat Club is not going to do anything for him, like even if he's just going to be the pin taker for the group, which you know you kind of need someone like that, and Yuta would be perfect for that. The experience he's getting, the exposure he's getting, and you know everything he's learning under those three names is something that he can carry for the rest of his career. That's probably gonna last for a very long time. And if he can bring all that knowledge and experience into wherever you're gonna go, whether he's gonna stay with AEW, or he's gonna go back to Japan and be in New Japan, or if he's gonna go to WWE, or he's gonna be in a promotion called All Star Wrestling, maybe that's gonna pop up in 5 years. You don't know. Wherever he's gonna be, he's gonna have tons of experience, tons of knowledge, and many years ahead of him. So there's nothing seemingly bringing Yuta down at this point. It's a matter of running.
You're right. It can only look positive for him. I just think at least he is different, like you say, as a Japanese wrestler, and he's going to stand out in many, and he's very good in the ring as well. So I just think he's on the right path. In a couple of years, I think we'll be see things that'll, even more progression, and he's with the right people. So yeah, very good.
Absolutely. And he's also in the revived Ring of Honor now. He has a belt on him, so
Yeah, a
at
championship
least
title,
at
Marvin.
least we can say that Tony Khan is behind him. So if at least the promoter is behind you, then that's gonna bode well for at least the foreseeable future. So
That's true.
I
Yeah.
think in 10 to 20 years, we're still gonna hear about Wheeler Yuta.
I think you're right. And well, he might be called something different when he gets to WWE. Probably. I don't know. I'm not even gonna try and brainstorm. I'm terrible with names anyway. I'm not even gonna go there. Um, yeah, it's been a pleasure to be on this podcast with you, Marvin. I really appreciate the time.
It absolutely has been.
Yeah, we got over the technical hitches. Apologies for the delay in bringing this entertainment to your screens across the internet, but it was good.
Of course, first time for you. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
will be back hopefully.
I just want to say this is going really well. Hopefully, it's not going to be the last time. As
Yeah,
eventually we're gonna have more wrestling topics to discuss, and just have a little bit of fun. And that's just
yeah,
gonna bring me to the viewers at home. We of course, everyone watching on demand. If you have anything you want to chime in, by all means, drop your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're scrolling down there, to drop your thoughts about how wrong we are about everything we just said, or to show us what really is going to be the future of wrestling, just make sure you press that thumbs up so more people can see how wrong we are.
Keyboard warriors unite! Come at me! Come on!
And with that being said, of course, everyone who was watching, thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye.
Yeah. Good night. Take care.